Hey guys, I'm Saurav, and in this video let's talk about 5 myths about photo editing. Now, photo editing is extremely important because the photos that you take might lack some colors, contrast and sharpness, and photo editing is going to bring those back. But there can be certain myths that you have in your mind, and I will clear all of them in this particular video. So without wasting any time, let's get started. So starting with the first myth is that you can't change the white balance in JPEG. Now it is believed that if you shoot in RAW, only then you can change the white balance, and if you shoot in JPEG, you can't. But again, that is not what is the truth, okay? So this is the RAW file and this is the JPEG of the same shot. So if I want to change the white balance in RAW file, I can always use the Kelvin scale and change the white balance. Suppose I like it about 4500 Kelvin and maybe just a warm tint of -13. Maybe this is the look I'm going for, okay? So right now when I switch to JPEG, I always have -13 in the tint, but I don't have 4500 in the temperature. As you can see, an error pops up that the number between -100 and +100 is only required. So although you don't have that same Kelvin scale, you still have the temperature slider. So if you slide this to the negative side or the positive side, you can still achieve very similar results. To prove this, what I will do is I will select the RAW file. I will select this particular RAW file and select the particular JPEG file, and I will synchronize the settings. And once the settings are synchronized, you can see the temperature and tint here has changed. So if you would have dialed -9 and -24 in the beginning, you would have got a very similar result. So even though you're shooting in JPEGs, you can get a similar result as in shooting in RAW, but again, RAW file gives you much more flexibility. The second myth is that presets are everything, okay? If you use presets, you don't have to edit your photos, and that is absolutely wrong. Like for example, I'm going to use a preset which is built in Lightroom. I generally don't use presets, but of course, if you like some look of the preset, you can obviously use. So we are going with this particular preset. Now, while making this preset, the person who made this with some reference, okay? Maybe that image suited this particular preset, and that's why the preset is looking like this. But the thing is, since each and every image is different, okay, the lighting is different, the colors are different, so basically it depends a lot upon that. So since each and every image is different, you're not going to get a very similar look with all the presets and all the images. So let's again apply the same preset and let's see what is the problem. So as you can see, the image is too warm and the colors are really not looking natural. So maybe the first approach would be just to cool down it a bit and add a bit of positive tint to actually remove a bit of that fake colors effect, okay? So now I have a slightly better looking, natural looking image. And then of course I can make my all adjustments here in the exposure and stuff. So of course those things are obviously there, but what I meant is even though you're using presets, no matter how good the presets are, you always have to tweak your image because the image is going to be slightly different. So using presets is a good thing, but think that of as a first base edit, and then you can always tweak your images according to your liking and get a very decent and a very good look. So presets can save a lot of time, but make sure that you're not only using presets and you think the editing is done. So the next myth is about clarity slider. Now we think that the clarity slider is a magical slider which will increase the quality of the image, make the image more clear as the name suggests, but it is not so. Actually what the clarity slider does, I will just zoom in a bit, it adds a bit of a structure to your image. So if I add a bit more clarity, let's add +100 so that you can see the effect. You can see it is not that the image quality is getting improved, it is just that you are seeing much more structure in the image, right? The image quality can't be improved with the clarity slider. Obviously sometimes if the image is looking dull, maybe a +5 or a +10 would not make any harm and give that pop to the image if it lacks that particular feeling. But right now when I have adjusted my highlights and when I have adjusted my shadows, there are already certain kind of structure introduced in my image. So for example, if I go -100 and +100, you can see there's a bit of structure already in the image. And on top of that, if I'm adding +100 of clarity, it looks completely fake, right? And that is the reason we are not going to do that. So we are going to keep our shadows and highlights pretty nominal, and then we're going to just decrease the clarity, because since we have introduced a bit of structure already, I'm going to take it away to preserve the natural look. Okay, maybe just about -5 or -10 would look better. So it depends upon you. If you really like the structured look, you can maybe use a bit of clarity, but make sure you just don't overdo it, because it's not going to enhance the image quality. It is just going to enhance the structure in the image. And the next myth is about the highlights. So we believe that if we are shooting in RAW, so this particular file has been shot in RAW format, then we can recover any details, whether it be highlights or shadows, and be like not worried about what we have shot. And that is again completely wrong. Okay, so here, as you can see, I've exposed for the shadows intentionally, and I've left the highlights clipped. So by clipped, what I mean is it goes outside this particular histogram. Okay, so if I toggle this on and off, you can see these details are clipped. Now the obvious solution to this is just reduce the highlights, and now you can see there's nothing clipped, right? Here it was clipped and here it's not. But now the point is, even though it's not clipped, you cannot see any detail in this particular part. Okay, even though you decrease the exposure totally, you won't be able to see any detail which has been blown out. So once you have clipped the highlights, there's no way you can recover them, whether you're shooting in RAW, JPEG or any other file format. So always make sure you have to expose for the highlights, and then you can obviously get the shadows back. Like for example, this particular shot I exposed for the highlights. Okay, so the sun is always going to be bright, so I can obviously decrease it, not an issue. And then for the shadows, what I can do, I can actually give a +100 in the shadows, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to increase the exposure a bit, just about 2 stops maybe. Yeah, and then I'm going to increase the shadows just about +40, and then I'm going to decrease the highlights. So now, as you can see, I have the details in the shadows, I have the details in the highlights, I can see all the details in the highlights here, and the exposure is now pretty well maintained. So always make sure that you expose for the shadows and not for the highlights, because those details cannot be recovered in editing. The next myth is about Photoshop and Lightroom. Now, people often debate about if Photoshop is better or is Lightroom better, and the answer is both are not comparable, because both are different softwares, right? So since both are different softwares, it is very difficult to say what is better. What is better and what is not actually depends on your needs. If you want to make image adjustments like the tonality, the colors, the sharpening and stuff, Lightroom is a great software. If you want to do some kind of image manipulation, again, Photoshop is a better software, because Lightroom lacks those kind of features. Okay, so now it depends on what do you exactly want from your image editing software. Both are again very different softwares and used for very different kind of image editing. In Photoshop, you also have something known as Camera Raw. So this Camera Raw filter, where you get settings which is present in Lightroom. So you can do such adjustments in Photoshop, inside Photoshop, without using any other application, and then you can proceed with other adjustments. So it depends on what do you exactly want to do. Okay, there is no conclusion of whether Lightroom is better or whether Photoshop is better. So you can use both the softwares. I always use both the softwares. I use Lightroom for my image editing purposes, and then if I want to make certain adjustments, I use Photoshop, and then I use the Nik Color Effects Pro 4 to add some contrast, and that is how I edit my images. So if it suits, you can also use both the softwares. Okay, so I guess that's it from my side. So I hope you enjoyed this video, guys, and this video helped you, and next time when you're post-processing, you know what things to do and what things to not. If this video helped you, press the like button. If you loved it, press the subscribe button for more such content. I will talk to you guys in the next one. Bye.